Seravalli for Horse Racing Alberta. Frank, you are going all over the place today. Are you already exhausted? Are you already sick of airports? I'd imagine you were sick of airports 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I've been sick of airports for a long time. I'm in travel hell. Greetings from Newark, New Jersey, and I just feel fortunate that I was able to get out of the soup that is South Florida because the Panthers, they're stuck. The Panthers may not be getting into Edmonton until well late tonight. They did not use the extra travel day to do traveling. They used the extra travel day to hang at home. And so they are in one right now as well. So I did the old Florida to Newark, Newark to Toronto, Toronto to Edmonton, and I've still got 2 legs to go.
Yeah, that is Liam and I lived through like more or less the exact same thing. It sucks, but you had the extra layer of having your flight canceled yesterday. For the Panthers, is that really like a big miscommunication or miscalculation on them not trying to get out as early as they could yesterday, considering the weather?
No, I'd do it exactly the same way. And if it were a weather thing, I would have just tried to make sure I'd do it this morning. But if you can get a day at home, another day in the comfort of your surroundings, another day. Ryan Clark had a great piece about this on ESPN.com today about how the Florida Panthers have not played a single playoff game so far outside of the Eastern time zone. Think about that for a second. The Edmonton Oilers have played a playoff game in every time zone so far. Pacific, Mountain, Central, and Eastern. And Tyler, you yourself, you actually did that one day. You hit all 4 time zones in one day in North America. So I'll be curious to see how they adjust, but I would have probably done it the same way, which is use the extra day at home to just relax.
Yeah. Let's talk about all the hits that were going around. Everyone's still arguing on social media. I found a way to get fired up about it 36 hours later. Were you surprised nothing got more elevated through the Department of Player Safety?
No, because I think, and I'm not, when I say this, I'm not patting myself on the back, but I think this was the accurate take on Daily Faceoff Live yesterday, which was if you really have to squint and look for reasons to suspend, that's not going to meet the threshold when it comes to the Stanley Cup final. It has to be clear and obvious. It has to be egregious. And I would also say that if you're really going to go back and look at things, I'm not even sure that the Warren Foegele knee, I'm not sure that deserved a 5-minute major and game misconduct. So I don't think the Draisaitl hit. There's lots of things that I didn't like about it. I didn't like the arm placement. I didn't like the fact that his forearm makes contact clearly with his head. But if you're going to be suspending for that, you're going to be suspending 34 times a night. That is about as standard as it gets. And when you saw some of the still frames, I heard you go on your rant. That was not a player launching himself. That was a player whose body went upwards after making the initial point of contact, which is pretty standard. So to me, I thought it was certainly worth a penalty. Didn't think it was worth a suspension, and I think ultimately they get it right.
I honestly don't even think that was a penalty. Like, in the moment, they didn't even call it a penalty on the ice. They had to go and talk about it amongst themselves to see if it was going to be one. The officiating was just so weird in that game. But Frank, what was your kind of general takeaway, I guess, from game 2? Because obviously it was pretty much the complete opposite of what happened in game 1.
That's actually exactly what I said to someone yesterday, which was like, actually in the middle of game 2, I was like, hey, this is all we're seeing right now is the inverse of game 1. And it's so weird how that happens. The Panthers obviously controlling and dominating play, and all of that said, and Chris Knobloch mentioned this again yesterday, had the Oilers power play come through, you hit the post 3 times in one game on the power play. Instead, we're not talking about this power play being over for the series. We're not talking about the Oilers scoring 1 goal in 2 road games. We're talking about a series that's probably tied. We're talking about the power play that saves the day. And we're talking about the Oilers' star players producing when it matters most. All those things, the almosts, they don't count. And so That's not how life works when it comes to the Stanley Cup final. You don't get rewarded on the deserve to win a meter, positively or negatively.
Yeah, I think if you're, the Oilers fans watching right now, I think looking at having to win 4 of the next 5 against this Panthers team is a very daunting task, but having to win 3 in a row against the Dallas Stars was also something that was looked at as like, holy shit, are they going to be able to do this? They really do have to take it one
I got
game
to
at a
stop you
time.
there though, because they didn't have to win 3 games in a row against the Stars. Winning 1 would have gotten them to level ground. It forced game 6 automatically. This is different. You've got to win 4 out of 5 or else. It's a totally different circumstance and scenario, and it's one that the Oilers haven't faced to this point in the playoffs.
Well, they had to win 3 out of 4 or else against. I know 4 or 5 is different than 3 of 4, but I mean they've been in a not quite the same but similar spot is my point. Yeah, and I know there's whatever minutia and all that, but just looking at game 3, we talked about power play's got to be better. Gregor wrote on Oilersnation.com, the star players need to be better for the Oilers. What are sort of the key areas you're looking at ahead of tomorrow night going, that's what needs to be better?
Well, when we did our show the other day from Fort Lauderdale, we talked about one key player to step up, and for me, that was Draisaitl. I got to tell you though, it's so easy for everyone, and I'm following the coverage today, whether it's in the Athletic, whether it's on Oilers Nation, whether it's you pick the outlet du jour, and everyone's like, "Oh, the Stars need to be better." Well, why is it that the Panthers can get goals from Evan Rodriguez and Anton Lundell and all these other where are those guys for the Oilers? It can't always be on 2 guys to produce who all they've done so far in these playoffs is produce. It can't just be, it has to include some depth. It has to include unlikely heroes. It has to include those things, because if you boil it down to just the Stars, chances are that's probably not going to be enough to win 16 games. It might get you to 14 games, but it's not going to get you to 16 wins.
Yeah. All right. I know we said we're keeping it quick. I got one more I wanted to throw your way, though. It's about your new piece that's up at dailyfaceoff.com. I know Oilers fans don't really want to sit here and talk about what's coming this offseason, but you wrote about 9 buyout candidates, and one of them is Jack Campbell. With that situation, when there comes a point they need to make a choice on Campbell, is it trending more towards buyout than offloading him by a trade?
I just don't know who's going to take that contract. I think buyout is the only way that they can maneuver around it. And I just don't think that the Oilers are in a position now where they can sit here and say, you know what, we'll just stomach it for one more season to make the buyout ultimately shorter. When Jack Campbell's playing in the AHL, his cap hit counts for $3.85 million. That just can't work. You can't have almost $4 million of your cap space devoted to a guy playing in Bakersfield. It can't happen. And the buyout, at least in the short term, is really palatable. You'd clear up $2.85 million in space by simply executing the buyout. I don't think they should be in a position where they should be trading assets in order to move it. I don't know anyone who would really want it. And to me, it told me so much that when the Oilers got into this spot with Stuart Skinner in the playoffs, not that there was a big shock, but no one even in a serious manner said, hey, why don't we try Jack Campbell here? There's zero trust. It's eroded. There's no coming back. And I think you have to look at the buyout and say this is the next logical step. But I've got about 6 questions to ask the Oilers between now and then, whenever this season ends, whether it's with a parade or whether it's in heartbreak. They've got quite literally 7 days to figure a lot of this stuff out. The buyout window opens 48 hours after the Cup final concludes. Who's going to be the next GM of this team? What are some of the other significant pieces that you need to ask questions about, including someone like Darnell Nurse? Because I just think for the Oilers to think that you can sit here and run it back exactly as assembled, I don't believe that's exactly in their thought process. I think they'd be in a tough spot if they tried to do exactly that.
Frank, as always, appreciate your time. I know it's a quick one today, but you're bouncing around. You'll be back up in Edmonton tomorrow. So look forward to seeing you and look forward to your coverage of Game 3.
Yeah, quite literally. I will be there tomorrow.
Yeah, landing just after midnight. There goes Frank Seravalli for the horses. Exciting live thoroughbred racing at Century Mile every Friday at 6:15, every Saturday at 3:45. For more information, go to thehorses.com. Appreciate Frank giving us some time from the airport. What's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.